What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Kentucky put on an absolute clinic last week with a dominating win against Florida. The Cats moved to 5-0 and jumped to 20th in the AP poll, just in time to travel to Athens to take on the number one team in the country in the Georgia Bulldogs in a game that, for the first time, Kentucky feels like they have a real chance of winning. In this video, we'll recap the pounding that the Cats put on the Gators and find out what they have to do to sneak out of Georgia with a win. As always, guys, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We have videos covering the Cats and the SEC every week. You don't want to miss out on any of the action. Also, as soon as this video is over, head over to the community tab on my channel and submit your predictions for the final score of the UK-Georgia game for a chance to win a prize. Now, like I said, Kentucky absolutely manhandled Florida on both sides of the ball. At no point in the game did Florida ever look not only like they had a chance of winning, but even competent. For Kentucky on the defensive side of the field, it was more of what we've seen and expect from this Brad White group. Starting up front, Kentucky recorded 3 sacks and 9 tackles for a loss. That obviously doesn't include all of the other pass attempts where Graham Mertz was just running for his life and they got pressure. The linebackers and secondary did a great job in assisting the defensive line, especially in the run game. Florida's been a team all season that wants to establish the ground game, and they've had success doing it. The Kentucky front seven was able to hold Florida to only 69 rushing yards for the entire game, and they only averaged 2.4 yards per attempt. They were also once again able to hold their own through the air as well. Even though Mertz did complete 83% of his throws and have 2 touchdowns, they only gave up 2 really big plays and forced an interception, and Mertz only came up with a QBR of 57.6. If there is anything negative to say about this Kentucky defense, it's that what everyone refers to as the middle quarter, or the end of the first half and the beginning of the second, is where we consistently see this defense give up big scoring drives, and that's exactly what we saw in this game as well. I will note, however, that Kentucky was 2 sacks away from pitching a shutout. In one, they had Mertz in the backfield, and he just escaped to make a play and continue the scoring drive. And on the second drive, De'Aaron Jackson was actively pulling him to the ground in the backfield, and somehow, before he hit the ground, Mertz found ETN with an underhand pitch and threw him the ball. It was 4th and 3, and that ended up extending the drive, which eventually led to a touchdown. As for Kentucky's offense, this is where most of the questions about this team has stemmed from this season, specifically our offensive line, but they absolutely showed out in this one. This was truly a coming out party for this run game. All season, outside of a few big plays, it seemed like we struggled to dominate the run game like we as a fan base are so used to doing, and we've talked a lot about that here on this channel. But again, this is the best team Kentucky's played so far, and Ray Davis rushed for 280 yards and averaged 10 yards per carry. I don't care who you play. Those numbers are impressive, let alone against an SEC opponent. As a team, Kentucky rushed for 329 yards and 3 touchdowns and basically embarrassed Florida's defense. Thankfully, Kentucky didn't have to rely a ton on the pass game. Leary is still struggling to find his rhythm in this offense, and receivers are still struggling to catch the damn ball. Leary finishes with 9 of 19, 69 yards and 1 touchdown. When you run the ball like we did, you obviously don't need to throw as much, but if we want to have a chance at Georgia, the passing game has to be more effective. Overall, on the offensive side of the ball, I think I have 2 main takeaways, one good and one bad. Starting with the bad is, like I just mentioned, the passing game. I trust that Leary's going to have a breakout game and he can place the ball where it needs to be. My larger concern is our receiving core. It's obvious that these drop passes are a mental thing now. I'm not sure how you fix that, but I think they're in their own head, and honestly, it might be in Leary's head. It seems like every game Dane is getting less thrown his way, and part of it is I think that there's trust issues there now. They had 4 drop passes in this game, and we'll talk about one here in just a second. But Dane had one, Barryon had a bad one, and there were 2 other drop balls. But overall, now here's a positive takeaway that I have from the game. Kentucky could have easily scored 44 points instead of just 33. Barryon dropped a wide open pass in the end zone with no one in the same zip code as him. The drive ended up in a field goal instead of a touchdown, and at the very end of the game, we could have scored again but chose not to. Overall, I think this was by far the best game we've seen Kentucky play this season and should serve as a good foundation for the team to build on and another reason to be excited for what is going to be a huge game against Georgia this week. Georgia opened as a 21.5 point favorite over the Cats, but that number was almost immediately bet down to about 15. That is a huge swing in the sports gambling world, so a lot of money has came in on favor of the Cats. While I think Georgia is clearly the better team, I don't think this is the same Georgia we've seen the past few seasons. They aren't the dominating force that they have been in recent years. Auburn came very, very close to beating them last week, and South Carolina made it a game a few weeks ago, and neither of those teams play particularly good football this year. For whatever reason, Georgia has been a team that starts a game extremely slow, and while Kentucky has recently been a team that comes out of the gate extremely hot. Not to mention, this is a series that Kentucky has covered the spread in 4 of the last 5 meetings, and at times maybe even made Georgia sweat it out a little bit. I think that if that trend continues and Kentucky can come in and start the game fast and jump out to like a 7-0 or a 10-3 lead and really put pressure on Georgia, it'll be interesting to see how the Bulldogs respond. And there are some things, of course, working against Kentucky here besides Georgia just being Georgia. This is Georgia's first home SEC night game in, I believe, over 2 years, so the crowd will be rocking for a 7 p.m. kickoff. Also, it seems like we may have some receiver injuries. Stoops was very quiet on that subject, so we aren't exactly sure who is going to be out there trying to catch passes against the number 1 team in the country. If I'm Mark Stoops, I'm preaching the same message I always preach when you play in Athens. Burn the ships. Start the game fast, make them have to respond to you, and keep the game within reach and give yourself a chance in the fourth quarter. This may be Kentucky's best chance to steal a win against Georgia in recent memory, and if you're a Kentucky fan, I think that's all you can ask for. That is going to wrap up this video, guys. Hit that subscribe button for me and head over to the community tab and leave your score predictions for a chance to win a prize. Let me know in the comments if you think the Cats have a chance to pull off the upset in Athens. I'll see you guys on State Street Saturday night. Go Cats.